Thank you all for coming. I'm just going to pass you on to Neil now. Thank you.
Yeah, just again like to welcome everybody to the meeting this afternoon. My name's Neil Hurd and I work for Bradford Alliance on Community Care, or BACC, and we supply development support to the Disabled People's Forum. We've come up with the idea of having this meeting this afternoon involving the Disabled People's Forum and members of some of the older people's organisations in the district that the Disabled People's Forum has held in the last 6 months that has involved local politicians. And we had a meeting in March which we've got a number of politicians at, and we've got a number of local councillors here today from a variety of political parties, and we've also got David Ward MP who's going to say a few words to you in a minute. Hope you get a chance to listen to some other views, and I'll just hand you over to David Ward MP who's going to speak to you for a few minutes.
Right, thank you very much indeed. It's great to see so many people here. I was talking to somebody who was having a cup of tea there, and they said they were told it was actually the people were invited here to play bingo, and they felt that they were being cheated. So I'm sorry for those who actually came thinking it was bingo. They just did that to get you all here. But this is far more important than bingo, but it is something that hopefully we all can eventually win on. You know, I'm quite a new Member of Parliament. I'm still trying to work out what this job entails, but it surely must entail, if nothing else, legislation, trying to explain what proposals are for legislation and getting feedback from people before it actually is enacted, before it becomes law, getting feedback from people on the proposed legislation. So that's really what I'm trying to do, and my team today are really collecting in information so that we, the politicians, and certainly this politician, can be informed, far more informed. Now, it's not easy because the government has published a draft bill, but also lots of other documents as well. So there's the Caring for Our Future, the progress report on funding reform, and funding is obviously crucial to the whole issue of social care and support. There's what we call the white paper, and a white paper is like a discussion document which talks in principle about, not detail, but in principle about what the legislation is seeking to do. And then there's a draft care and support bill. Now, if anybody having trouble getting to sleep at night, does anybody suffer from insomnia? Well, do you want to borrow this? And I will give you an example. The power of the Secretary of State under section 63 bracket 6 or 6A of the Health Services and Public Health Act 1968 is exercisable concurrently with HEE. But in exercising the power, HEE must have regard to any guidance or other information issued by the Secretary of State about its exercise. What on earth does that mean? Not a lot. Well, unfortunately, this could become law. That, whatever I've just said, could become law. So it's really, really crucial that people understand what the proposed legislation is, because it will end up in that form, and however legalised it becomes, it needs to reflect what needs to happen. And what needs to happen is not what the politicians believe needs to happen, but those who are on the receiving end, those who are involved in the care and support community. So all I'm trying to do is set the scene a little bit. The starting point, and I think this is a fairly universally accepted starting point, is that the present system is not right. There's lots of things that need to change. Across all political parties, there is a consensus that the present system is really not fit for purpose. There's a need for reform. So that's good. that all the parties are agreeing on that. There's also, of course, an acknowledgement that there is a funding gap. Social care is great, you know, we are living longer, but that comes with ailing, ageing, becomes lots of costly expenses for the state and for individuals, of course. So we need to look at the funding gap, the ability to be able to provide the quality of care, the level of care that people require, and be able to afford it. We also need to work out who's paying for that. Now, there was a commission called the Dilnot Commission which looked into the funding of this, and it's come out with some recommendations, but the funding part is not to be decided. It's not really part of this bill. So it is very much about principles, but at the end of the day, the government is going to have to make a decision on how much the resources that are made available to support the actual content of the bill. Now, we can all agree most of the time on basic principles, but it's the repercussions of that, the principles and the costing that results from the legislation, that is crucially important. And also in terms of some of the things that you're looking at today. So for instance, we may all say that elderly people support carers and their support should be treated with dignity. I mean, everybody thinks they shouldn't be. We're just going to kick you out of the room, by the way. Everybody. But what does it mean? What do we mean? And your definition may be different to mine. Fairness, respect. What do these things actually mean? Because depending on what they mean, that determines what is actually provided through legislation. It's crucially important that you feed back what does it actually mean to you. Now, the Dilnot Commission recommended actually that there should be a cap, because of course for many people it's a frightening possibility of having care costs that absolutely strip them bare of everything they've saved for and everything that they've devoted their life to, investing in the home and everything else. So it's suggested that there should be a cap. Now, that is a principle. It doesn't state what the cap should be, but it states that there should be a cap. Let's get a common agreement that there should be an end to unlimited liability for many people in terms of their care costs. And the other principles, still just principles at this stage, include a national minimum eligibility. And as some of you will know, there is what's called a postcode lottery. It depends where you are growing old. It depends on your level of need in different local authorities across the country. And so, should there be, as a matter of principle, an entitlement to a minimum level of care and support wherever you are in the country? Now, it may be topped up by local authorities putting more money in and making decisions, less on highways, more on. But there should be, should there not, should there be a minimum eligibility wherever you live. There's also, and this came out of the Dilnot, was what's called a Universal Deferred Payment Scheme. Now what this means is that I think somewhere in the region of 40,000 people a year have to, Keith may know the figure better than, but I think it's around 40,000 people, have to sell the homes every year to fund their social care needs. To go into care, to pay for that care. Now what this scheme would do is say that you don't have to actually, in effect what would happen is that the government to begin with, but then the local authority would lend you the money backed against your home, and you would not have to sell the home. Well, you wouldn't be there until you'd put your clogs. The home would then be sold, or the spouse, because it would extend to the spouse as well. But it was quite rightly pointed out in the Babbitt meeting, yes, you would still have to sell that home to meet those costs. It just defers that. It doesn't mean that there would be, but there would be a cap on the limit. Don't forget, one of the other principles is that there should be a cap on the limit that any individual should have to make. Maybe 35,000, maybe 50,000, maybe 100,000, but there should be a cap on that. There's also, as a principle, and now you're coming back to the dignity and respect, that there should be personal budgets, and they should be made compulsory. So each person should have a say. So rather than the state or the local authority saying, this is what you're entitled, and this is, by the way, how you're going to get it. So dictating to you, you would have a personal budget, and this is happening in other areas, SEN and so on, where you are giving the budget based upon your needs, an assessment is carried out, you're given a budget, you decide how you actually want that money to be spent. So a sense, in a world that's really, really difficult for you and all sorts of things are happening to you as you grow old and changes are taking place, some element of self-control through a personal budget. If you don't want to do it, you can, in effect, contract that out to the local authority to do it if you don't want to do it. But you have that entitlement if you so wish. This is another bit that I feel really quite strongly about. Granting carers an entitlement to assessment as well. And carers are often the forgotten bit, the forgotten partner in care. That the needs of those requiring support are looked at and understood, and for good reasons. But often the carer is secondary in terms of considerations. But the carers have a life as well, and are entitled to a life as well. So what the legislation proposes, that's all it is that there should be an entitlement to an assessment in their own right for the carer to support their own well-being as well. Not just the well-being and how this fits in with the person requiring support, but also for the carer, and that they would have a personal budget as well to meet their needs. You know, they might want to go to college, and they can't go to college because they're looking after somebody, and well, maybe what they would like is to do a correspondence course. Anyway, it would be looked at. So that's the principle, that the carer should be entitled to an assessment. There's also, and you may have come across this through relations, whatever it is, what they call portability of care assessments. So when you move, so you have your assessment and you're living in a particular local authority, and then you move, and then you've got to start all over again. And there's a gap between the care and support that you've received in one area and another until you're reassessed, and then then there's the delay that probably occurs. Well, what it says is you should carry. Sorry.
Rigmarole, setting it all up again.
But you know, there may be needs to be a new assessment where you move to, because there may not be a facility that you've been using in where you lived before. But what you do need to do is, whilst that assessment is being taken, you should carry forward your entitlements from where you were before. So the portability, it's called, of care assessments. Another really important thing is, and again, Babbitt, this came up as an important issue, which was a new code of conduct on minimum training standards. So this is for care workers and for social workers. So yes, of course, we expect them to be, but what this would say is it's a code of conduct, so it would be maintained wherever you are across the country. You have a code of conduct which specifies the level of training that the care workers and social workers should receive. There's also some money has been set aside. There's an investment of £100 million next year, and I think it is a similar amount the year after, which is to support the integration between the National Health Service and social care. There's often a fragmentation or detachment really between the NHS and social care. So it's looking to see if we can fund that integration, the better integration. Nearly finished. Investment of a couple of £100 million into specially adapted housing for older and disabled people. So that has been set aside at this present time. And then finally, we've just been chatting about this with Jan Mauritius about the new Health and Social Care Bill, introduced the Health and Wellbeing Boards. And I mentioned the dislocation really between social care and the NHS, but there's also a lot of people who feel there's a dislocation between NHS, social care and public health. And what this seeks to do, and it's early days, it's still being formulated, developing at this stage, which is a good time for you to be involved so that you have an input into how this thing develops, the new Health and Wellbeing Board. But the purpose behind it really is to bring in that long overdue integration of those often detached and fragmented parts of what should be a coordinated service. And they come in April 2013, so this is still time to influence the development of those. So I'm sorry I've sort of gone on a bit, but this is big stuff. This is, when it's introduced, will be legislation for the next 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It lays, there is a mass of legislation covering this area, and it seeks to bring all of that together in one bill. So this is a really good time for us all to be considering this, because all of us, either directly at the present time, or through our relations, or in our children who are going to be picking up the burden, all of us, everybody is involved in this and should be concerned. So please, use this opportunity. Thank you for contributing. We've got loads more to do. We've done social care within the constituency. I'm across the border at the moment. But in my own constituency, we've done a survey form to every single home, through every single letterbox, to try and get feedback. But these are crucially important because you have knowledge, experience, and can help to inform the legislative process. So, sorry, no bingo. So.
I'm going to pass this microphone over to Paul in the first instance. Paul is the lead worker with Contact Peer Support, and he will say something from the perspective of disability about our discussions. Whether it will reach to you, Paul.
Thank you, Phil. I would get on the stage, but there's 3 steps. So I'll just hide round the back of here. I think it's been very interesting and lively discussion, and it's something that we're all quite passionate about and want to look at what's going to happen in the future. And David Ward said something. I wrote it down at the beginning, and one of the things that I took out was funding gaps. And the other one was principles. So how do we still have principles if we've got less money to do with it? And my fear is that we would end up losing some of our principles because we had less money to do it. So we provided a cheaper service, that we lost some of that quality. And I think another thing is, I hope we don't lose choice. I hope we do get choice brought in and have more opportunities to do the things that we've never done before, and really that was my feelings of it. I know that we're grateful to everyone who's contributed to today, and when we put everything together, it will be put into a report, and we'll try and get a good picture of the things that have been said. And it will be able to go forward to hopefully influence what does it come out and how it comes out.
Right, well, I get the last gasp of statements, and I want to say what's going to happen from here. There are a number of more ways that you can put your views about this important legislation across. On Monday, the local authority are holding a meeting in these rooms between 2 and 4 p.m. And you need to register to do that, but an easy way of registering is to go and nudge Jen White, who's sitting facing. Oh, yes, she is. Thank you. So there's that. I understand. I think that the council's Social Care Scrutiny Committee will be holding a briefing, meeting, discussion about it on Wednesday of next week. So it's quite important, if you can, to make comments to the various web addresses, surveys that exist. The national one is the website associated with the Department of Health, so the Care and Support Bill.8.dh. You can email them, or there's a message board on that website, the Department of Health website. The Disability Rights UK have published a commentary of their views, and that can be accessed through the web, and they have a SurveyMonkey questionnaire you could complete, as does David Ward MP. I presume it's still open, but that is on that website. So if you Google David Ward, you can follow the links and publish things there. Or the Disabled People's Forum, we will collate what's written on those flip charts and feed that into the Department of Health and to the local authority. And we will monitor, follow through what is happening. On your way out, there are some brief notes that the set of notes that they're in 3 formats, but the set of notes that really were produced by Jen White's office. So we made no work. We just printed them off, but they're available there. It's also made it available in a large font edition, so size 20. Font 20 print size, so please only take it if you need that size, because we haven't done as many as that. And there's some audio versions as well. You can hear my dulcet tones.
This is an audio version of the easy read of the Care and Support Bill 2012, done courteous by David Ward MP.
There you are. Thank you. So anyway, so there's those. I don't know. I think that's. If anybody, if any disabled attendees here have any expenses, then we're happy to meet those. But you need to speak to my colleagues on the desk over there. Finally, I'll reiterate what Jean said. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks to the elected members. Special thanks to David and to Keith Nathing for making presentations, but most especially thanks to all of you for coming and your contributions to the event. Good afternoon.